Hello and Namaste. Ravananugraha Murti is another popular sculpture which you'll find in many Shiva temples. It depicts Ravana holding up a mountain with his arms, with Shiva and Parvathi seated on the top of the mountain. Anugraha is the Sanskrit word for blessing, showing kindness, and providing refuge. Ravana Anugraha Murti is the form of Shiva where he is seen blessing Ravana. If you like the content that I post on this channel, I request you to subscribe and press the bell icon for reminders. Also, please share it with your friends and like-minded people. Let me first tell you the story that this sculpture depicts. The popular version of the story is the one from Ramayana. Ravana's stepbrother Kubera ruled the mythical city of Alaka, situated in the Himalayas. It is believed to have been more beautiful than Indra's abode. Ravana invaded Alaka, defeated his half-brother and stole his flying chariot, the Pushpaka Vimanam. Ravana was flying back to Lanka in Pushpaka Vimanam when he noticed Kailasha, the divine abode of Lord Shiva. He was enchanted by its beauty, but his Vimanam could not fly over it. Even in those days, they had no fly zones, apparently. Ravana found Nandi in the mountains and asked him why he was unable to fly over Kailasha. Nandi told him that Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvathi were enjoying some private moments and no one was allowed to fly over their home. Ravana would not have it. After all, he had defeated the king of gods Indra himself. He mocked Shiva and ridiculed Nandi. This infuriated Nandi. He cursed Ravana. "How dare you insult my master? You are so arrogant because you have conquered the earth and the heaven. Soon you will be destroyed by a group of monkeys." Ravana becomes so furious after hearing this curse. He says, "If I am not allowed to fly over this mountain, I will uproot it and destroy it." He puts his 20 arms around Kailasha and starts lifting it. The mountain begins to shake and all the animals and ascetics and Shivaganas are shocked. Parvati is terrified and she embraces Shiva in fright. Shiva puts his arm around his wife and calms her down. With just his small toe, he applies pressure on the mountain. The mountain collapses on top of Ravana and he is trapped under it. He lets out such a loud roar of pain that it shakes all the three worlds. Ravana is unable to free himself from beneath the mountain. That's when he realizes that he is dealing with a divine power. He becomes an ardent devotee of Shiva. For thousands of years, while he is trapped beneath Kailasha, he composes and sings hymns in praise of Shiva. It was during this time that he composed the famous hymn called ShivaTandava Stotram. It celebrates the Ananda Thandava dance of Shiva. You can feel the energetic and explosive rhythm of the dance in the lyrics and the tune of the hymn. I have given a link to this hymn in the description below. After listening to this magnificent composition, Shiva is appeased. He releases the pressure on the mountain and frees Ravana. He comes down and blesses Ravana, who remains a great devotee of Shiva throughout his life. There is another version of the story from Shiva Purana which I have heard in my childhood. I want to share this one with you because this is my favorite version. In this version, Ravana is a great devotee of Shiva. He frequently flies to Himalayas in his flying chariot, the Pushpaka Vimanam, to worship Lord Shiva. He does penance for many years hoping to get a glimpse of Lord Shiva. But Shiva never appears before him. To show his devotion to Shiva, Ravana plucks off a couple of his heads and uses his nerves to make a veena and plays music for Shiva. Still, Shiva does not appear. Ravana is totally dejected and decides to end his life. At that time, sage Narada comes to meet him. He tells Ravana, "You are the mighty king of Lanka who defeated even Indra. Why do you have to travel all the way to Kailasha and beg for Shiva's darshan? You can easily uproot this mountain and take it to Lanka. Since Kailasha is Shiva's abode, he will reside permanently in Lanka. Your country will prosper, and moreover, you don't have to travel all the way to Himalayas. Ravana's biggest weakness was his pride. He is flattered by Narada's words and decides to uproot Kailasha. With his 20 strong arms, he holds the mountain and tries to lift it. The huge mountain starts shaking. Shiva applies pressure with his toe and Ravana is trapped under the great Kailasha mountain. Ravana cries in pain, and it is said that his tears eventually formed into the salt lake called Rakshastal. Even today, there are two lakes near Kailasha mountain in the Himalayas. There is Mansarovar, which is a freshwater lake. To the west of Mansarovar, there is a saltwater lake. It is called Rakshastal, meaning the demon lake in Sanskrit. It is also known as Ravantal. It is believed to have been formed from the tears shed by Ravana as he was trapped under the mountain. You will find no plants or wildlife around the lake. The Tibetans refer to it as the ghost lake because it is so lifeless. Even as he is crushed under the mountain, he continues to play his veena and compose hymns for Shiva, the greatest of which is the ShivaTandava Stotram. Finally, Shiva is pleased with Ravana's devotion and appears before him and blesses him. He addresses him with the name Ravana, which means loud roaring in Sanskrit, because he had screamed so loudly when Kailasha mountain fell on him. His original name is Dashanana, which means man with 10 faces. Because Lord Shiva himself gave him this name, it was very dear to Ravana. So his name became Ravana. I want to talk about two of my favorite Ravananugraha Murti sculptures. This is the Ravananugraha Murti sculpted on the mantle of Banteay Srei temple in Cambodia. And this one is the Ravananugraha Murti in Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple. They are very different and uniquely beautiful. Look at this dramatic image from Banteay Srei temple. At the bottom, you can see Ravana with his 10 heads. Unlike the ones you find in India, here Ravana's 10 heads are stacked up like a pyramid. All the Ravana images I saw in various temples of Cambodia have this kind of stacked arrangement. Coming to think of it, this appears to be the ideal arrangement for 10 heads, not the linear arrangement we see here in India. When you have so many heads, what is the point of all the heads looking in the same direction and from the same height? In this stacked arrangement, Ravana can see in all directions and from different elevations. He can literally have a 360-degree view of the world. In this sculpture, he has tilted his heads as if to prevent them from colliding with the mountain as he tries to uproot it. All his teeth are gritted in extreme concentration. Notice his multiple arms lined up to provide maximum strength and his palms open like he's trying to squeeze it underneath the mountain to get a grip. He's kneeling with one leg and his other foot is pressed against something to provide additional leverage. On either side of him, you can see frightened animals fleeing. They seem to be falling on top of each other and running. Their faces are all turned towards Ravana and the fear is evident in their expressions. Look at how frightened these lions look. One level above you can see Ganesha with his arm folded in prayer. Next to him is a parrot-faced person. In our Puranas, there is a sage called Shuka Maharishi. He is depicted with a parrot face. I am guessing this must be him. His one hand is placed on his chest in a gesture of shock and the other hand is raised. His fingers are bent like he's beckoning someone. You can imagine the scene. He's feeling the mountain shake. He's clutching his chest in shock and calling out to someone to draw their attention. On the extreme left, you can see two creatures in animated conversation. On the right, you can see two more people with their hands folded in prayer. Here's another monkey sitting under a tree holding an expression of shock. One level above, you can see 5 ascetics looking very animated. Each of them is holding a unique pose. The one in the center is kneeling and peeping down to see what's happening. His hands are pointed down. On the right, you see 2 people clutching their chest and looking up to Shiva for help. On the left, you can see 2 more people looking startled. Now look at Shiva and Parvati. Parvati is on Shiva's lap and she's clutching him tightly. She's tentatively tilting her head to see what's happening. Shiva has his left hand wrapped around her waist. He's looking at the ascetic on his right, who seems to be pointing and telling him about Ravana. Lord Shiva is trying to calm him down. His hand gesture is called Abhaya Mudra, which indicates, "Don't be afraid." The divine couple are seated under the canopy of large trees. There are beautiful trees all around them. The whole scene is like a candid photograph of the moment Kailasha shook. Here's another one from Angkor Wat, again from Cambodia. It is a larger relief sculpture. Look at the way Ravana's 10 hands are positioned here. 4 pairs of palms are in one direction and the 6 pairs are in the opposite direction. From the position of his arms and feet, you can tell that he has already lifted the mountain. He's underneath the mountain. He has made room for his heads, so they are not tilted. Notice the ascetics on either side. They are no longer in shock. Their body language and expression are that of awe and wonder. Their palms are open and pointed towards Ravana. Their heads are slightly tilted up. They seem to be saying, "Who is this man who has lifted this unconquerable mountain?" Compare this with the one in Banteay Srei temple. You can see that this depicts a different moment. Here he has not yet lifted the mountain. He has just started shaking it. You can see the difference in the way his body is positioned. Now I'll take you to the Ravananugraha Murti in Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple. Here too you can see that he has already lifted Kailasha. He has positioned himself beneath it. Notice how the heads are positioned here in one horizontal row, not stacked like you see in Cambodia. This is how Ravana is depicted in our temples in India. He is playing the veena. We know from the Shiva Purana story that he plucks his head and uses his nerves to make a veena. That is depicted here. What I love most about this image is this domestic scene on the top. In all the Ravananugraha Murti images I've seen in temples across India, this is the only one which features Ganesha. In all other images, it is Parvati who looks frightened and clutching Shiva. Here it is their son Ganesha who appears to be frightened and Shiva is comforting him. Ganesha is a small child in this sculpture. He has turned towards his father, who is patting his head and calming him. His other hand is cradling Ganesha's head. Parvati does not appear to be alarmed at all. She is calm and unshaken. I have always wondered why the sculptor has deviated from the Puranic story here. Perhaps because this is a temple where Parvati is worshipped as Meenakshi Amman, a powerful warrior princess who could not be defeated even by the gods. He might have thought that it was unbecoming to depict a frightened and simpering Parvati in this temple which glorifies the brave, strong and courageous Meenakshi Amman. That's it from me. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and press the bell icon for reminders. Please like and share it with like-minded people. Until next time, Namaste.